All right, here we are again, SkyWire, brought to you by the hearts of many. And here we are, we have Heidi and Mark, welcome. We have Dave sipping on that coffee. Well, we think it's coffee. That's my perception anyway. It's out of a coffee cup. I mean, who knows what it might be? Gail. Hey, Gail. And
Hi.
we have, and we have Margarita, welcome.
Welcome.
Eating something out of a bowl, not so sure what it is, but
Oatmeal.
something out of oatmeal. That's what she tells us anyway. How do I know unless I see it? So today our conversation is about perception and reality. In each and every week, SkyWire comes to you with some extraordinary conversation that just comes to us, that we listen to the universe, we listen to our lives, and we hear something that says, you know what, I want to be spoken about. I want to have a flashlight on me this week. And that's what I do. I hear something, I go, okay, it's showing up. Let's see what we're going to do with it. And this week, the idea came from Dave last week about perception and this conversation about perception and reality. Where do they come together? How don't they come together? How do we define them? And through all of this, we get an understanding about this through how we listen, what we listen for, how we identify, even the words coming out of our mouths through our listening. And so we're going to take this conversation and see what we come up with or what it wants us to come up with. I don't know. So I welcome everybody to comment if you're here live, and if you're not here live, but you're here live watching it on YouTube, please feel free to comment back to us, reply, and we will be certain to reply back. So let's begin our conversation today with Margarita. Go ahead. Take it away, Margarita.
Thank you. And in the green room, you can't believe Mark Davenport has this amazing, you may white box him here so he can show, to show his top he has. And you know, my perception of that is like early 19th century bathing gear for the upper classes. They go there, and you're missing the cap though. And you know, you go there on the beach, on a fancy resort. Maybe there's a sailing boat waiting there. So that's my perception of this. And so maybe we can hear everybody what they think about Mark's top.
All right, so Mark, you ready? Are you ready?
I love it. Go ahead.
Take it away.
Well, you know, I'm just picking up on perception and reality. I'm not on the beach. There is no sailboat. There is no sea. There is a very hot corner under a big hot lamp shining on me, and there is a broken down fan about 6 feet away, cranking away very slowly, because if we turn the speed up, it'll just vibrate to pieces. And we're sitting here having a fine time nonetheless, but not exactly an early 20th century day at the beach. No.
So that shows us that perception is guided by interpretation. Because the poor perception would be a figure which seems to be a man, and who has something on with stripes. You know, as soon as we say a shirt, it's not a perception anymore, but it is our knowledge says that this is a shirt. You know?
Yeah, make a gestalt out of this, and it's a shirt.
Yeah, but we can only see that this is gray, and this is blue, and this is gray again, and darker gray. This we can say, and that there are lines. So this is pure perception, and to separate it from our interpretation, I think this is one of the big tasks we all need to do.
So it's a big question whether or not it's interpretation, illusion. I mean, what is it? I mean, and I'm very curious because my perception may not be your reality, but it might be mine. So I'm not sure.
I
So
have somebody else.
go ahead.
Mhm.
So Gail, you want to add?
Sure. You know, I always like to bring it back to listening. So just what was coming to my mind when I was listening to everybody speak was that our listening, or what we pay attention to, what we listen to, whether it's the thoughts in our mind, you know, or whatever it is, that really, that creates our reality, which is our perception. It's like they're the same thing, really, based on what we're listening to.
That's true, I think. I think that sounds like it could be true.
Well, was I not? Maybe I wasn't clear.
No,
Probably,
no,
probably
no. I think
not.
you were. No. I think you were clear. I just think that sometimes people say something, and it sounds either so simple or so, like so dead on, kind of, that you didn't expect it, and you have to kind of like listen to process it, or listen for, yeah, that could be right. I mean, it doesn't make it wrong. Not wrong.
Like if you just take an example, like say you have these frightening thoughts in your mind, and then all of a sudden you're going to be scared, and your reality is scared. You perceive the world that way because you heard these scary thoughts in your mind. It's like you listened to it, you heard it, and that's your reality.
Right.
We do it all the time. I do it.
Yeah. So perception is someone's unique reality?
Yeah, I would say that, based on, a lot of times it's based on our thoughts, which is really what we listen to.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever thoughts we're listening to are going to shape our reality.
Okay.
And it's a choice.
Gotcha.
You know, is the glass half empty or is it half full?
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So Mark and Heidi, let me ask you something. Were you finished when you spoke? Because I'm not sure if you cut off or you were done.
Oh, I was done.
Okay.
I mean, there's certainly more I can say about it.
Okay.
I wasn't cut off, no.
Okay, perfect. I didn't want to. I wasn't sure. Okay, Gail, this is great. We're into another great conversation. And Dave, he's just smiling there.
Yeah, it's good because there's a lot of it ties up with what we deal with my seminars over the years. It's a core thing, is how people evolve and run their lives around beliefs and perceptions of things. And perceptions, like beliefs, a belief is your perception of a reality. It's not necessarily the actuality of the reality. The only actuality of a reality is experience. And when one experiences something and is in touch with this experience, then we have reality. Reality doesn't give a damn about your beliefs or your perceptions. We perceive something to be real, and we perceive something to be true. When we perceive them, we are believing in them. Now, we have beliefs, but they're not necessarily true until we have the experience of something, the event, the person. Our understanding of it has changed. Our understanding is driven by our perceptions and our beliefs until such time as it meets head on with reality. And in that moment we have experience, and we redesign all of our thinking because we now have an experience of something rather than its reality, rather than its perception. Because nothing in the world that is real needs to be believed in. We don't need to have a perception about something if it's real. If it's real, Empire State Building, Grand Canyon, Eiffel Tower, they're real things. We don't need to believe in them for them to exist in a particular way. We don't need to have some perception of them. We have a reality. We may not have the experience of them. We may never have been up the Eiffel Tower or into the Grand Canyon or seen it, but we know they're there. And when we really truly know something, that equates with the experience. Our beliefs and our perceptions are not are not the reality. They are just the perceptions of the reality. We can believe something, but until we actually see it, hear it, and think it, or taste it, or touch it, because they're made up of all of our senses. I'm going on too long here, but they're made up of all of our senses, and a lot of people think that we have 5 senses, and we don't. We have about 21. And
Dave, oh, sorry.
Sorry, go on.
No, it's just real. I'm not following you, and I'm really interested in what you're. Are you saying that we have beliefs about something, but that once we somehow have an experience of something, then the reality is more objective? Like you're talking about an objective reality as opposed to what we believe? Because even when we have an experience of something, aren't we still bringing our perception, to that experience? When are we not bringing our own perception to an experience?
I'll give you. I have a lot of people in the training seminars who tell me things, and it may be a perception, it may be reality. So I get different examples. But the one example I'll give you is have you ever been parasailing off the back of a speedboat? Have you ever gone up 150 feet on the back of a speedboat?
Have I ever done that?
On a parachute, yeah.
No.
Now I have. Now if I tell you what that was like, that's my experience.
Right.
When I tell you about it and I describe it, I am giving you that experience. When you tell somebody, yeah, but you are getting the experience that I have had. But when you tell somebody else about my experience, you're distancing yourself from reality, because you have no reality of that experience. So all that they get is your perception of my experience. But me telling you, I'm giving you my reality. And that's the difference. It's not a physical, mental, touch, taste, smell contact with an experience. It is merely a perception, merely a belief.
So I have a, go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm a little bit in doubt about that. But there was another thing I first wanted to say about the objective reality, maybe the tour or the Eiffel in Paris or the Great Canyon and so on. Yes, they are there. But when I see a photo or when I see it in reality, when I stand in front of it or on top or wherever, it's not just the perception of that reality. It's always connected with my emotions. And even if I only see the photo, what I perceive is some material construct, let's say, but it's much more. So,
well, we're dealing with two different things, Heidi. What you're looking at, we're dealing with two different things, because perception itself, there are two ways of looking at perception. One is that perception is a way that something is either interpreted or it's understood. And another way that perception works is that it's through an ability to hear, to become aware of something through the senses. So that's the experience side of it. So there are two sides of the coin of perception. We can perceive something to be one way, and the reality of it will be completely different.
Yeah, I think we are talking about different things. I'm talking about the separation of perception, pure perception, what comes into your eyes, and what in your brain is done out of it. You know, and what is done out of it, you said beliefs, but it is much even less than only beliefs, When we have strong beliefs about things, this perception is always colored and even distorted and whatever, but it is even much less. I mean, for instance, the shirt, no? What can you really say about it? What is the perception about that? We immediately see that this is a shirt, but this is not the perception. Perception is something much more basic than that. That's what I wanted to say, because it's immediately colored. And you know, perception can also be non the five senses. It can also be the sixth sense or the seventh sense or whatever can be a perception which we have and we don't even realize that we have it. You know?
Well, we do, don't we? I mean, we have got around
we might not.
Between 20 to, no, we do know. We actually use them. We've got 20 to 30 of them. I mean, we always say
at
that.
The moment, we might not be aware which one we are using, because normally we are using all mixed together. We don't get it clear which channel of perception we are using, and what part is pure perception and what part is our own makeup, you know?
Yes, there's a kind of reception that goes on that is just automatic. My ears don't have to work to hear. My eyes don't have to work to see. My skin doesn't have to do anything to feel. And all these 21 that you speak of, for example, they all happen too. And I'm not in any position to categorize all of them. This is a Gestalt experience that happens, you know, and it's absolutely unique to me at this moment, and I'm not sure how far we can take this apart, because we cannot exclude ourself and our own first-person experience, and we cannot exclude the we experience of telling someone else about this. And then there's somehow a scientific third-person view that's looking at this experience but not participating in it, you know, and this is an extremely complicated affair, and it happens instantaneously, moment by moment, and too often for us to even take notice of it, and we confuse that with something like reality.
Well, the difference,
I mean,
the
what
thing
else
is,
can we do?
sometimes we'll see two people talking about an argument they've had with somebody. But when they're describing the argument they've had with somebody to each other, a third person looking at them will perceive that as them having an argument.
Mm-hmm.
Now, who's right? Are they having an argument? Or are they describing the argument? The third person in that context is seeing a completely different, has got a completely different understanding of a reality that is going on, which they are not part of. They are not part of the reality of that conversation. So they perceive it as two people having an argument, when in fact they're describing an argument. And these senses that we bring in, we all know what they are. We have a sense of fear, we have a sense of balance, we have a sense of time, and all of these are lower senses that make up those main five. It's like saying when somebody's got a sixth sense. You know, we've numbered that, which is like when somebody says you're very perceptive. Because they say that you're very perceptive, they think that you have some spiritual or occult or supernatural understanding of things. Like the movie, The Sixth Sense. You know, when somebody is deemed to be perceptive, they have an understanding of something which can be unspoken, which can be completely unnoticed by anybody else, but they will walk into a room and sense something is wrong because they're perceptive. Are they perceptive? Is being perceptive, is that the same as perception? Because its description is different. And so perception is a thing that's very grey. It's some form of understanding or belief that we have about something. And until we have the experience of that thing, we do not have the true reality of what that experience is. And so it could be that our perception is completely wrong.
But is there a true reality of what that experience is? Because everybody's going to have their own perception. Yeah. Everybody's going to have their own experience. My experience is not going to be your experience. It's going to be my experience.
Well, I've found over the years that everybody has their own reality.
Right.
And that's, you know, that is the key. It's not the experience that's the focal point. It's the person. Everybody has the same experience on different levels. It can affect them, or it can't, or it doesn't affect them. They can take notice of something, or they don't take notice of something. It can upset them, or they're not upset by it. They can find it funny, or they don't find it funny. But the core of the experience is still there. But
I'm not following you on that one.
The reality is the thing that it happens. And until it happens, you can't really understand the basics of it.
So I kind of see what you're saying here in some regard, but then I'm also looking at the word experience and thinking that's a perception.
Right.
So it's, and I see how I can see how you could be saying that in order to perceive something, you're basing it on something. But what you're basing it on is a perception.
Exactly.
Whoa! And
you see, until you're in there, until you're in the room and you're doing something, until you're picking that cup up. If I pick this cup up, I've now got the reality of picking this cup up. I know how much it weighs. I know whether it's heavy or not. I know whether it's cold. I know whether it's empty. But if I look at that cup, if I go like this, your perception is I'm drinking a cup of coffee. I may have an empty cup. I may have a cup full of vodka. You don't know. Your perception is I was drinking a cup of coffee.
We'll find out soon enough if it's vodka in there, right?
Say that again.
Well,
say that again. Say that again. I didn't hear that.
If there's vodka in that cup, we'll soon find it out in the way you behave after this.
Well,
and that's when the reality kicks in.
But the thing is, I could pick whichever perception I want to pick. Because when you started, I said, well, my perception is that could be coffee, but it could be something else.
Yeah.
So I don't drink vodka out of a coffee mug. I usually drink coffee out of, or tea.
Excuse me.
Go ahead.
It's not your perception that it is a cup of coffee. This is your assumption. Your perception is that there is something in his hand which you interpret as a cup. And then you have the assumption that there is coffee. That has nothing to do with perception that this is a cup of coffee. Really?
You know, I think this is such a complicated conversation, but I think we might not all be using our terms in the same way. Like, Heidi, you keep saying perception in a way that I think a perception is different. Like, to me, you're saying the perception is almost the sensation of what you see, and then your interpretation of that is something else. But when I use the word perception, I use it, I think, in the way that you would use it as if you were interpreting it.
Yeah, it's exactly, I used it in the same way until I came across NLP, and there I really got it clear how many things we mix together.
Okay,
and
so
we don't belong together.
So my question is, why does this matter? Okay, so the question is, in talking about this and listening to whatever we're getting from this, how does this help the planet? How does this matter to anybody? The clarity of understanding or even of talking about this. Why does this make a difference in my life, your life, or anybody's life?
It does make a big difference because I say, for instance, you have again this cup full of vodka and you should not drink, and then there is a fight, and when you go and go there and it's only coffee or it's only water. So we have so many assumptions about what we perceive, and it's not perception, it's our interpretation. And on this are founded the wars, or the wars and the quarrels of what we think we perceive and we don't. We interpret it in our ways. So that is my idea on it.
Okay, that's a good one. Okay, who else has a good one? I want to hear why this even matters, and why do we want to take it to any level of discussion? How is this going to make a difference? So, Margarita, what were you going to
Yeah,
say?
I think that at first, when we first are born, we have impulses coming in through our senses, and then we learn how to interpret them. Later on, we always go back to something that we have perceived in the past and how we have interpreted. And then it goes layer and layer and layer and layer, right? So like Heidi said, it's like, yeah, and then we say that it's not the same as perception, whatever. I think that reality, that everyone, where we are, it's completely full with perceptions and interpretations. And really reality, if you go to the quantum physics theories, it consists mostly of empty space. So we create a mind game here on the third dimension about this. And then we take some assumptions that's made of people that we respect. We think that's the law, that's how it is, that's the reality. For example, I said about Mark's top as a bathing outfit, because I've seen before a picture or a drawing of somebody on a beach with that. And I thought, that sounds nice. That's a really nice picture. And as soon as I saw Mark's outfit that he wore, I came to think about that. Yeah, that reminds me of the early 20th century beach, right? But I didn't remember that it was the picture I have remembered in my mind. It just went to connect with, yeah, early 20th century beach. I forgot that I actually saw that picture. And so I think this is how most people do it. And so perception to me is what comes in. If you not interpret it immediately, it goes away. So there is always an interpretation. It's always an assumption. And then we want to sort it out in different categories. And so making sense of it. That's my view. I think that other schools may have different definition. Exactly what Gail said. We always have different definition. I mean, I'm Swedish, and I see the world maybe in a Swedish way. Heidi sees it in a German way, or German-Italian way, and Mark sees it as a American way. And, you know, we go like that. And because the cultural heritage dictates that we have to be affiliated with certain views that we are conditioned with. Yeah. I mean, the simplest one of perception is, I put my hand in the fire, ow, I move it away. That's maybe the most purest interpretation we can do. It's hot.
I completely agree with you, Margarita. And what I was saying all the time, an advocate, what I'm being is to interpret it as less as possible, and as how do you say, as near as possible to what I would call reality, you know, to what really goes on. Take off the layers, it's better to say it. Take off the layers of beliefs, of heritage, as you said, and all these things, as many as possible. Then we have sort of a idea what reality could be, but we never reach there. I really agree with that.
Mm-hmm. And you know, when we are, let's say, enlightened, I think that people who are actually omniscient and enlightened, they have removed all of these cultural conditioning beliefs, any kind of interpretation. They just see it as close as the primordial state is. Exactly what you expressed, Heidi. So from that point of view, anything that's not from that unborn state, that's an interpretation.
That's why listening. That's why listening is so important. That's why listening is so important. Because that's what you get. That's the direct bridge. Once you've gotten oh, I'm hearing myself a lot. Once you clear up the bridge, I mean, once you clear up the layers and you acknowledge, you hear the layers, you decide, okay, this layer can go into this layer. This layer melds into this layer because I've heard this. All you have is the listening.
It's very interesting, Marilyn, you say layers, because I work in Photoshop a lot, and then you have a basic picture that you're going to adjust, right? And then you do an adjustment layer. Okay, we need more brightness here on that picture here. And you add some light. Oh, it's not sharpen it. And then you sharpen it. And then we're going to spiff it up and put in like some effects in there. And then we have drop shadows. We have, you know, filters that makes it stand out. And then the first picture and the end result is like two different things.
That's a perfect analogy. That's what happens when you listen.
Uh-huh.
So,
if I may,
yeah.
I don't want to forget some things. You were talking about why this matters, you know, and then Margarita added some observations that it's absolutely dictated to us that our perception be filtered through our social reality. We don't have any choice about that. And we see it most obviously with young children. They simply accept the world around them as the way it is. And the way they see it is the way it is. If they can't see you, you can't see them. That is reality. And it gets more and more complicated, but it's always within a social context. You know, we never quite get rid of that because we have to function in that social context all the time. And as we evolve and become more sophisticated in this business, we come to understand that the way we see things is not how others see, you know, and we have to accommodate that there are other realities for other people. Here in Italy, we are very, very aware of people of a very different culture, and many of them extremely uneducated and also wonderful people. And their world is so different from the one that Heidi and I live in, and we would be at a loss without them. So what I'm trying to say is that as we grow and evolve and develop our own selves, our understanding of how complicated and complex the world is doesn't actually, in a psychological sense, get simpler. You know, in a spiritual sense, like Margarita says, it can reach a real simplicity eventually, you know. But the psychological world, the actual world that we operate in, becomes ever more complex and requires ever more sophistication. End of rant.
No, that's why we're doing this, because we're through the words and through our perceptions of listening, we get to help make it simpler. We're bringing it all together. That's what we get when we do this. So, you know, looking at the word, listening to the word perception is helping us say, okay, we can put this into maybe interpretation. Maybe it's the beginning of interpretation, you know, and then it just goes from there. Okay, this is an acknowledgement. Oh, I understand this word because I'm listening to it. Okay, I don't need it anymore. I understand this concept. And then the other thing I think to consider is emotion brings on perceptions. I think emotion has something to do with perceptions. And I have muted some of you. So I've muted Marguerite, but I'll unmute you. Just put your, and I know Gail and Dave have already been muted because there was a lot of background noise. So who wants to go next? Just put your finger up. Who wants to go next? Okay, I'm going to unmute you. All right, so go. Margarita, go.
Yeah, and I agree with Dave too. because he, I think, sees this in a sort of a coaching point of view. And so I don't want to say that he's all wrong, but it serves what he does with his client, perhaps. I'm sure, because he's a very respected man in the coaching, right? But when we actually analyze it, I mean, I'm a math student. I want to dissect everything and see how do we come down to the lowest denominator. And I think everything we utter with our voice is a perception, an interpretation. Everything we take in, we have to interpret it. How could we? Otherwise, we won't remember it. It's just, we have to interpret it. We have to interpret it as a visual image. We have to interpret it to like a touch or a pain thing. So maybe pain is the most basic perception we can have of reality, because that's the survival, right? And then, like Mark says, it's like getting ever so psychologically complicated. And then we have to clean up those layers, right, in the Photoshop, right? And I'm sure Dave is on that too. Remove that layer. We delete it. We delete that, and then we can have much more authenticity.
So you just said also terrific, because what we're doing is, and maybe this is what we're doing. I don't know if this is exactly what I'm doing. Whoops. I don't know if that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm not sure. But what looks like we're doing is, it looks like we're using our listening and interpreting it. And out may come a perception. Out may come something else, a belief, or a feeling, or whatever, because it's all based on a reality that we're not even sure about. Dave?
No,
Yeah, go ahead, Heidi.
Yeah.
No, it was you wanted to say?
No, I wanted to be sure that you
yeah.
had a chance to
Okay.
say.
In my idea, perception is the basic thing where all the other things then come up.
Okay.
So
what do you mean?
Perception is the moment, and then comes the interpretation, then there come the feelings, then there come blah blah blah, all the other things.
So is that like intuition?
I think intuition is a form of perception, but it's already combined with interpretation normally. When I have intuition, I have a sort of a message, So it's not pure perception, but it is transported by perception.
You don't have to take an intuition and perceive what it means, or
no. What I want to make clear, that the meaning is not part of the perception. Perception is only the income. What Margarita said before, it's what comes to you in some way, whatever channels there are, and then the meaning comes later. What we make it.
I just want to say, Heidi, that I understand what you're saying. That what your meaning of that word perception is. I have no problem with that. I understand it. I get it. But I just want to say that in my life, when I use the word perception, I use it differently. So it's just something to pay attention to, that would just so that, which actually kind of relates me to the point that I wanted to make, which you said before, why does all this matter, right? Mm-hmm. And so to me, why all this matters is because so that we could connect with each other and we can understand each other better and we can make bridges instead of walls. To me, that's why it matters.
And that's a great perception of why this matters, because there's probably several things that make this matter. But it's great to be able to talk about these kinds of profound kinds of things, maybe not, and have an open dialogue, which is a model for whatever anybody is ever talking about, and say, you can have this, you can have this. We really don't know what it is, but I can have an experience. I can have experience of what each one of you is saying, and there's a piece of me that can connect with each of what you're saying and have it be, and it's real for me. Now, what's my habit of that thing? My habit could be a perception is something that then my intuition tells me it is or it isn't. But then again, I can see everything. So, Dave, what do you think?
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, no, I think it's fascinating. It's the first time in a long time that I've spoken with people about perception where everybody understands it, and a lot of people perceive things but they don't really know why. They don't know that their perception of something is a construct. And yet here we've got a group of people who, I'm really pleased to be with, because everybody's firing on cylinders, about perception, and you've got their own understanding of it. And the thing is that there is no one true meaning of perception, I don't think, because everybody's perception of something is different.
That's right.
Everybody's reality is different. Everybody's experience is different. Gail and I can go to the same party. I could have a wild time, and Gail could go away and say, God, it was a terrible party. The perception of the experience is different for everybody. And it's so simple on so many levels. And again, as we said earlier, when I was looking at putting something up on screen, and we said about how I said it seemed to be so simple once I figured it out. When things are that simple, we tend to question them, because we think that things are only real or true if we have to strive to find an answer on something. Mm-hmm. Whereas in fact, if something comes to us easily, it's still the truth. It doesn't devalue it. It's just that we have found it to be so easy to find. And that is sometimes down to us being good at what we do. And there's nothing wrong with being great at what you do, as long as you know you're great at what you do, but you don't just tell everybody, I'm great at what I do. If you understand that what you're doing is simple because of your ability, then you get these answers very, very easily, and they are still the best answer that you can get. So I speak to a lot of people who have absolutely no idea why they do things, and why they think things, and why they experience things in a particular way. And yet, once they get this understanding of perception, I think everything falls into place. We've covered areas of assumptions and beliefs, and it is true that you make assumptions based on your beliefs. These are beliefs about yourself, about others, the world, situations, but your beliefs are formed in large part by your perceptions and your influences. As Mark said, about influences that you acquire early on in your life, about family, your culture, your friends, then your experiences, your intellect, knowledge of the world. And perceptions and beliefs can and often are influenced by your assumptions, which are in turn influenced by your perceptions and your beliefs. So it's like a loop that we tend to go in, and we continue on this nested loop of what's a perception, what's a belief, and what is going on. The only time we ever stop dead and understand is when into that loop comes reality and experience. Doesn't mean that your perceptions and your beliefs are wrong, but we can get caught up in them.
So what I find is so interesting here is part of is what you're all is everything you're saying, and like what Gail said, what Dave said, Marguerite, Mark, and Heidi, and about how we are listened to come together, so that me personally, I can listen to each of you, which is a model for the world. I can listen to what you say, and I can learn from it. I can agree, listen to disagree. I can listen to agree. I can listen to learn. I can listen to get stronger in my own beliefs. This is what listening is all about, what we're doing. I'm hearing Dave and I'm thinking, okay, I can try something out here. This is safe for me to hear my something that just came, and I can present it to you all and say, well, how does this sound? So I'm sitting here so this is why this is so great in listening, is because like I'm thinking, okay, so is perception a human thing? Based on my humanness?
As opposed to what, though?
As opposed to my intuition, which I again have to apply my humanness to, because I am coming to it as a human. So my perception is me. It's my human pieces coming together and perceiving something. And the better I can tune in, listen, the clearer I can get, as Margarita said before. See, David said, okay, so it's your experiences, it's your belief, but that's all my human part. But if I want to listen to get beyond that part, how do I do that? Because if I come up with my intuition, I still have to apply a human part to that intuition. So I want to get past that.
But I don't understand. I don't even understand how that's possible, and why
I don't know. Why
do you want to get past the human part? I don't know what you mean by that.
I want to tap into. I'm curious. Okay, so then we have this quantum.
Can I just ask you?
Yeah, go ahead.
Are you talking about extrasensory perception?
Maybe. Oh wow. I don't know. Maybe.
Before we
or
go
are you talking about objective reality?
Yeah, that's where we should be.
And Marilyn.
Yeah. Go ahead, Heidi.
Yeah, I prefer that.
Perception is not human exclusively. Cells have perception, plants have perception, everything has perception in the universe.
Even a hydrogen atom can tell when it's bumping up against an oxygen atom.
So it's not me having a human experience on my perceptions?
Oh, you have it too, but it's not. You don't need to be human to have perceptions. There are other, practically the whole universe, how it is built, has ways of perceiving, different ways probably than humans have, but it is a perception.
Okay, but am I? What I'm asking is, so even if a plant is having its perception, it's mine is my humanness, that's their plantness. You know, a bird might have a perception, that's the birdness. I'm asking, that is beyond our part, beyond my humanness, the birdness, the plantness. The next thing is there. Does my is there more beyond? I mean, I know there's more, but I'm saying a plant comes to its perception based on the plant.
Mm-hmm.
So
I would say that every creature creates its own universe.
Exactly, and we live in our own universe, yeah.
Right? And that's not just sentient creatures. I mean, like I was saying, atoms even know the world they live in. They have some perception of what's on around them and what they can do in their neighborhood. And this is just different eyes of God, you know? God has eyes in every creature, in every particle, in every energy wave, you know? And it's all, I don't necessarily speak of God in these terms, but it's as a metaphor of all of these perceptions are part of the universe, part of creation. There's nothing wrong or inaccurate about any of them as perceptions.
Yeah, and I want to add, we humans have a specific thing, because we are very good out of learning to create beliefs and sort of falsify, I would say. Maybe it's not falsify, but direct our perceptions in a different direction. While animals and plants don't. You know, animals, some learn a little bit, like our doggy, a little bit. She learns out of past experiences, but not too much. And plants probably even less. But we have this possibility to learn out of it. And so out of certain perceptions, we get certain information, and we have certain impulses to behave in a certain way, which maybe, you know, in the animal world is only flight, freeze, and
fight and freeze.
Fight and flight. You know, Marilyn, I've taken delivery, if that's the right word, of 2 8-week-old German Shepherd puppies. 2 boys, 2 they're brothers from this litter. Their perception is that they can run around the yard or outside and come in, and I'm waiting to feed them. Then they go to sleep, and they think, I'm sure their perception is that while they're asleep, I'm waiting for them to wake up to feed them again. And I'm waiting for them so that I can take them out for a walk. The reality is that I'm waiting for them to go to sleep so I can spend an hour in Starbucks. Now, that's 2 different realities going on the same instance there. And I think, yeah, you know, there other things like dogs, cats, birds, giraffes, lions, whatever, have perceptions about something. You look at something and you think, yeah, I could kill that. A lion looks at something, yeah, I could go and kill that and eat it. That's its perception. So yeah, they do have these perceptions, but I think it's some common thread through all living things. But I think we are the only ones with a conscious awareness that we can change that perception and change the reality. I think a lot of the time, a lot of other species, should we say, are reactive and accepting, whereas we are more aware and we can control. Like a dog has absolutely no interest in its own identity. Yet we as human beings, we will try to change our surroundings. A dog will accept its surroundings. A dog will accept where it lives, but we try to change it. So we have this thing going on in our minds where we're driven to alter and change things. You know, so our perceptions of things are not always. A lot of the time, perception is how we see things in the world. We've got choices of how we see it. We've got choices of how we perceive it, and so therefore we have choices of the reality that we create.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I'll tell you what, this thing that I was talking about, I don't want to monopolise this, but this thing that I put up, I just want you to have a look at this, if I can find it.
Yeah, you get it. We'll be here.
I will. Here we go. Now, if I go to this and look at it now, it might put it up. Right. There we go. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Right. What does it say?
What do you see? And then I gotta shut up, or I can't. You better say it, because yeah. Let me pin it up.
You got it?
What do you see? Opportunity is nowhere.
Right.
Or is now here.
Yeah. So there's 2 ways of looking at that.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people would look at that and think opportunity is nowhere. But there's also a large percentage of people will see that as opportunity is now here. So when we have things happening in our lives, how we perceive them is really the key driver of who we are and how we are. We can either perceive something to be negative, we can perceive something to be an issue, a problem, a challenge, or we can see opportunity. Mm-hmm. So our perception of the world really revolves around our main driver, which is, are we positive? Are we negative? It's like Mark said earlier, you've got a glass of water. Is it half full or half empty? And I've done this exercise where I pull the glass up and people go, oh no, he's going to do this half empty, half full thing. And I say, how heavy is this? And people pick the glass up that's half full. How heavy is it? Is it heavy? No. But if you continue to hold it, it will get heavier, your arm will get weaker. Like anything, you hold on to negativity. But you create the negativity in some things because something will happen and your perception is, I'm not going to enjoy this. I'm not going to have a good time. We said earlier about pain. You get a dental appointment in 3 weeks' time. You're thinking, or your perception is it's going to be painful. They're going to be drinking so far they're going to draw oil. This will be blood everywhere. You won't be able to talk for 2 days. And yet you go to the dental surgery and they go, boom, done, no pain. You have 3 weeks of pain that you've created in your mind through your perception of that event.
That's why I'm so keen on keep bringing it back to this listening thing, because the listening, you take it into all of those little nooks and crannies, and you hear. Go ahead. Who's got something to say? Go ahead.
No, I wanted to talk to Dave because thank you for this example. Because for me, this phrase, this is a real example for different perceptions without interpretation. You first, how do you read that? It's really perception, and when you have read it in your way, then begin the interpretation. So this was great. Thank you.
It's good, Heidi, because what you really see first of all, when you first look at it, not when you look at it and think, what else can I see?
No, sure.
When that first image you get is really the area, the context that you're working out of, without us unconsciously.
This with the old lady or the young lady, this is great.
Yeah. and that head that turns, and you think, well, what way is turning from the left to the right? No, it's turning from the right to the left because of the shadows. It's how you're reading it. And sometimes these things happen, and as soon as you start to interrogate them, you get different meanings. But that first meaning you get when you see something, that is the context that we're working out of.
See, and I'm not sure I don't know what the first thing was that I saw when I was reading it across. It was so close that I'm not sure which is the first I saw, and so I think that's extremely interesting because I really don't know. I saw them both. I really don't know. So that's my problem. Anyway, this has been very interesting, I would say the least. And who has, Gail? Margarita, go ahead.
Yeah, and then when you have something positive there or something negative, it's shown in marketing studies that if the negativity, a word, let's say, of negativity has twice the power of a positive word, because we want to avoid pain so much that we pay more attention to the negativity than the positivity, and actually is twice as much according to that study. So if you read the words, probably as in my case, I didn't see what the words were, I just saw no.
That's interesting. That's interesting. Well, we're almost out of our time for today, and so I want to thank everybody that's listening, whether again you're listening live, or you partaking over YouTube. We're delighted to have you. We're here each and every week, pretty much coming up with something like this, and don't ever know what it is or where it's going to take us. But we just listen. So we hope to have you here next week. If you have any thoughts about our show, any ideas which you would like us to talk about, if you're interested in exploring something with us, let us know. And we'll see you all next week. Margarita, everybody, Gail, Dave, thank you for being here, and over and out.